Along with that comes the internal controls. So again, thinking about the user that went in and tried to delete a bunch of stuff. So that, again, if that was one of the employees that was unhappy, or some of the examples that people have used, I've heard in the past are like, Jeff over here, I actually heard someone say this, Jeff over here has this 50-tab Excel spreadsheet, but I'm worried, what if Jeff gets hit by a bus? Like Jeff's the only one who knows how to work this. And that's totally true. Like that is a real thing that is more common than people think. Like they have one employee that's come up with this very complicated spreadsheet, has everything in there. But I mean, the bus example, I don't know about, but what if something happens? They, have to move, or, they are disgruntled, fired, what have you. If you only have one person that's managing this, anything can happen. Nobody else don't know how to use it. There's no internal controls preventing them from deleting information. So a software will avoid that situation because everybody can learn how to use it. There's segregation of duties so that there's controls anytime data is added or edited, and approvals that go along with that. Because again, in Excel, it's great because you can change anything, but that's not always necessarily a good thing. With that, with the versioning that you might have with Excel, so a software will track changes. It'll show you what changed, who changed it, approved it, timestamp of approval, give you a history report. Very important for the auditors as well, not only for like the changes in the system, but changes to the data. They would likely want to see what new leases were added over the last quarter, which ones were terminated, modified, impaired, changes that were made. So again, Excel is great because you can easily make those changes, but you don't have a way to see effectively when those changes are made. And as those changes are made, if you're doing it in Excel, you have to recalculate everything. I mean, you literally have to recalculate the whole schedule if there's an amendment or a renewal or a partial termination. You reduce the number of copiers on the lease, you got to do a whole recalc. So that's all stuff that you could, again, in theory, do in Excel. But do you really want to? Do you really want to risk having those not captured correctly or not accounted for correctly? I don't know. Realize as they're trying to do the evaluation of their leases, which again, I know a lot of you guys said might be difficult, is they realize they don't really have a super great place to store all these documents. They've just kind of been floating around, right? Like controller at one location has these, real estate has these copies, accounts payable may have some, legal might have some, accounting certainly probably doesn't have them all. So there's not really a great place where information lives today. And Excel isn't super great at allowing you to store documents. I mean, like in theory, you could link, I was thinking about this earlier, you could link like a share drive link in there to the PDF, but that's not very clean. So along with all of the work that you're doing, you want to always have access to the source documentation. So software will allow you to store the different documents, including the lease agreement, photo of the location, maybe you have insurance documentation, additional amendments, appendices, all that. So definitely want to make sure that you've got all of that in one place because it will help you save time on finding that stuff, because your auditors are going to be looking for them. They're going to be like, hey, where is the lease that supports all the, all this work that you've done? Because they want to test and make sure that you've gotten the appropriate outputs based on the appropriate inputs. So you'll save some time, save some money with the lease abstraction and the just the document storage. You can have a list of all the leases, the payment schedules, critical dates, things like amendments, free rent, renewal, terminations. You can have all that listed out in Excel. And that's like the first big hurdle. But the problem is that relies on you checking the Excel. It doesn't do you any good if you're not aware of it. So while you can track all that in Excel, one step further with software is the ability to set up alerts for these things so that you're not having to constantly check in Excel or even a software to know when you have something coming up. It'll send you an email that says, hey, you got a payment change coming up on the 1st. Don't make that payment so that you're not overpaying. Or, hey, you've got a renewal option coming up. You have to let them know within X amount of time whether you want to renew it or not, or you miss it. You miss the discounted rent. No, but they all can. Any department that has their hands on leases would be able to be part of the workflow and communication with the software Because think about it, like legal, mentioned this earlier, legal might have, visibility into the agreement and may need to or want to review different clauses, contracts for, additional negotiations. IT may have, needs to have documents because they are responsible for copy or leases or servers or different types of service agreements for your IT equipment. Accounts payable actually has to pay them, so they probably need visibility to the leases. So I definitely want to provide them a list of leases so they can pay the appropriate amount and on time. You've got accounting, who's often the last to know about these types of things. So accounting has full visibility. Sometimes people will set up a workflow that legal will be the one to enter the lease data into the system, or the real estate team will, and then have the approval from accounting so that they know the minute that they're entering into a new agreement that they can start accounting for it appropriately. Yeah, and then you've got real estate, right? They often are the ones going out and looking for the different locations, managing things like forecasting with treasury for like budgeting and things like that. They may manage like facilities. So lots of different departments can benefit from the use of a software as opposed to Excel, which really can't really necessarily do this very easily. And here are some of them. So we can go through these. I know we've got just a few minutes left, so we can go through them pretty quickly. But first of which, is readily available, right? I mean, you guys probably already use Excel. And to go back to down to the fifth thought here, you probably already know how to use it. A lot of you guys are probably Excel wizards, self-proclaimed. I know a lot of people out there I've talked to. I've seen some very good, effective spreadsheets for this new standard. So I'm not doubting that you can do it, but that's one of the benefits is that you already have it. And because of that, you don't have to, implement anything new, and you have control of your data, and you don't have to pay for something else. So sometimes, while the cost of it, like a software, will outbenefit the cost of not being compliant, sometimes that upfront cost is tough for people to swallow, especially from people's higher ups who say, why can't you do this in Excel? So no learning curve. You can kind of implement it at your own pace. But all of this really hinges on this second to last bullet point here, right? You've got the flexibility in your own calculations, which again is a good thing, but also a bad thing, right? You have to create your own calculations. No fun, but you do have the flexibility there. But it hinges on you having a small, simple lease portfolio, right? If you came to me and said, Rachel, I have 2 leases and I went through this presentation and I feel like I can do this in Excel, I'm not going to tell you, absolutely not. You're not going to be compliant. There's no way, right? Like if you have a small lease portfolio and it's simple and you're feeling good about it, maybe it's right for you. But most people we found have some complex leases or complex scenarios, and it's unique to them as an organization. So in that case, Excel might not be right for you because you've got to figure all that out yourself and be confident that what you're doing is correct based on the new lease accounting standard requirements.